Affairs correspondent at the Eye, Molly Blackall. Let's get cracking then. Quademic, it's in the Eye, and England on course for the worst flu season. I feel like I've been through the worst flu season already.
I know. Well, I'm trying to get through this segment without sniffling, actually. I've got some emergency tissues stashed away, so I really do empathise with everybody at home feeling similarly. Yeah, it's a warning from England's most senior doctor, who says we could be on course for one of the worst ever winters to hit the NHS. So it's a quademic, as you mentioned, Leah, which is a toxic combination, really, of flu, COVID, RSV and norovirus, and it's sort of all hitting at once. So at the start of December, which is a lot earlier than normal, 95% of NHS beds in England were already full. So there really isn't a lot of capacity there to deal with it. And yet at the same time, flu cases increasing 22% in mid-December. So it's a pretty dangerous combination there.
Slower uptake of vaccines.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got to the stage where people aren't even sure what they've got. You know, we used to get the flu. In the winter, you get colds and flu. Now, is it COVID? Lots of people not testing. Is there any point in testing? You know, and then this quademic where you've got norovirus thrown in there as well, and RSV as well.
Yeah.
I think hospitals are going to be feeling the brunt as well of the social season of everyone coming together, families, people, friends, over Christmas and New Year. So it's obviously going to get worse over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I had flu, COVID, 2 months ago, and I wasn't working, so I could really indulge in it.
Yeah.
But for lots of people, it's about getting out there, carrying on the best you can.
Yeah.
Emma, take me through to The Guardian now, because this is really interesting. A rise in nutrition-related hospital admissions. What's this down to? Quite troubling, GPs are saying.
Really worrying, actually, and the figures are astonishing. The level of hospital admissions kind of attributable to a lack of iron and nutritional deficiencies, vitamin B, things like that, 192,000 in the year up to March, whereas in 1998 and 99 it was only 20,000, so it's a tenfold increase in those few decades. The Royal College of GPs says that a nutritional diet with all the vitamins and minerals that we need and all the kind of, you know, vitamin B, iron, is becoming increasingly unaffordable, and with iron deficiencies a particular concern. And these are, you know, these are conditions of poverty. These are conditions of poor nutrition. It shouldn't really be happening in Britain in 2020. I was going to say 24. It's 25. It shouldn't be happening. And yeah, I mean, GPs are extremely concerned. There's a particular concern about children. You know, iron deficiency damages their development. It damages their sort of attainment at school, their concentration, all of that, and it can damage, you know, their physical growth. So it's this spike in the cost of healthier food, which is actually obviously hitting the poorest the hardest.
Yeah, I was reading about this. Olive oil last year increased by 28%, and iceberg lettuce went up 24%. And you can see when people can't afford to cook healthy food, and yet fast food is so cheap, you end up, you know, with a very difficult choice. There is actually this year now going to be a ban on junk food adverts before 9 p.m. That's coming in October in a bid to try and tackle, you know, some of the attraction to cheaper but really unhealthy foods.
OK, we'll park that there for a moment. Wanted to move on to the Mail now. This is page 5, and we all talk about New Year's resolutions, don't we? And one of those might be, you know, putting down the booze and dry January. But apparently it's a bit of a fad, and it could actually be bad for your health.
Well, we've been having a long discussion about this, haven't we? Dry January is my New Year's resolution for the first time, and I'm declaring this on national telly in a bid to hold myself accountable, so we can check in
It's only day one.
Well, it's going very well so far.
You can hardly drink at breakfast.
9 o'clock, it's going really well.
Well done, Molly.
Let's catch up in a month and see how it went. It's basically warning. I think the headline's a little bit inflammatory here, to be honest with you. It's saying that if you use Dry January as an excuse to drink very heavily on the month's either end, then it sort of defeats the point. But I think there is a very real, you know, kind of impetus to do this. I mean, not drinking or drinking less is so much more normalised. There's so many more alcohol-free products worse than there have been. And that's translating into dry January. 15.5 million people, obviously including myself, going to be trying to take on dry January this year. And there's a real need for it. Alcohol's causing record-breaking numbers of deaths and obviously linked to very many health conditions. So I think the doctor here is saying if you use it as an excuse to be silly, it's not going to work. But I don't think she's saying that the whole thing is useless.
Yeah, it's those extremes, I suppose.
Yeah,
You're not
look, it
keen
gives
on
your liver a break, doesn't it? I mean, it does, you know, even if you just do dry January and then you go back to drinking, she says, judgmentally. No, not at all. But I was just saying, at Christmas lunch, I was drinking along with everyone else. I don't drink. I was drinking no Secco with everyone else drinking Prosecco. And the options now, without being boring, because it's no big deal, but the options of alcohol-free stuff have got so much better.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
you feel like
market.
you're drinking. And you're not drinking champagne, you're drinking no Secco or, you know, red wine that was alcohol-free, which is really quite tasty.
And crucially, no headache in the morning.
No headache in the morning, and you can deal with your children.
Well, this leads us to our next story very nicely. It's in the Times,
Yeah.
page 10. Teen girls outdrink boys and almost all of Europe.
Almost all of Europe. It's only Denmark, Hungary and Italy that outdrink British girls. British girls are... More than a third of 15-year-old girls in Britain have been drunk at least twice, compared with less than a quarter of boys the same age. Girls have now outstripped boys, have overtaken boys, which is very surprising. I would have assumed that it's teenage boys that drink the most. And experts are saying that basically companies are really targeting young women. They're making it a real kind of gender thing, but also that young women are kind of mirroring their parents and mirroring their mums. And we have a major binge drinking problem amongst women. A quarter of women in this country go out regularly and drink more than 6 drinks in one session, which is classed as a binge. So it really is a problem. And, you know, experts are saying this myth about introducing your children to alcohol early, getting them used to it, is an absolute myth. They say there's no safe level of underage drinking, that we should delay drinking for little ones, for teenagers, as long as possible.
And also blaming advertising too, which... I think when I see you kind of advertising on TV.
That's often when you don't notice it, though. It's sort of
perhaps.
seeping in. I think it is really alarming. And, you know, they're saying here, obviously, some of it is that parental advice, actually, contrary to kind of popular belief, just don't start them at all.
But also... You will find, and I suppose that spike in Italy is a little sip of
red with dinner.
But, you know, also calling for stricter restrictions on alcohol marketing. You know, if this is becoming an increasingly sort of significant problem, then maybe we do need to look at some regulation around it.
And you know, we have to remember these are children who are developing. These are young people developing. You know, too much alcohol can damage the development of the brain, the liver, the bones, and mess up the hormones. So it's quite a crucial time for children not to be drinking.
We'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Back after the break.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance.